What does the future hold for the Ukrainian and Russian conflict? This question has been echoing across the globe. The stakes are high, the tension palpable, and the outcome uncertain. The conflict has evolved into a fierce battle of wills and resources. Ukraine's resilience in the face of adversity has been remarkable, but Russia's military power is undeniable. The question on everyone's mind is whether Ukraine can muster the strength to push back the Russian forces and reclaim its lost territories. There's an undercurrent of fear that this conflict could escalate to a level that could change the geopolitical landscape forever. What if Ukraine manages to turn the tide of the war? What happens then? Does Russia ramp up its military aggression? Does it resort to even more deadly weapons, crossing lines that were previously uncrossed? But this isn't just about Ukraine and Russia. The repercussions of such a shift would echo across the world. Will the Western world stand by and watch, or will they step in more assertively to prevent a catastrophe? And what about Russia's allies, China and India? Will they continue to stand by Russia if the conflict takes a more dangerous turn? This video seeks to explore these questions, to theorize on the possible outcomes, and to consider the strategies that Ukraine might employ to gain an upper hand. We'll delve into Russia's potential responses, the role of the global community, and the road that lies ahead for both nations. The future is a maze of possibilities, a puzzle with missing pieces, but one thing is certain: the world is watching. The choices made now will shape the course of history. So let's take a closer look. Now let's delve into the possible strategies Ukraine might employ to turn the tide. Ukraine, despite the odds, is not without options. In the face of adversity, Ukraine could adopt a diverse range of strategies and tactics to regain control. One crucial element lies in leveraging international alliances. By garnering support from global powers, Ukraine could secure not only diplomatic backing but also financial and military aid. This could involve the provision of resources, such as weaponry and protective equipment, as well as strategic advice and intelligence sharing. In addition to this, Ukraine could focus on strengthening its defense capabilities. This might involve bolstering its military forces, implementing advanced training programs, and investing in state-of-the-art defense technologies. By fortifying its defense apparatus, Ukraine could potentially withstand and push back Russian advances more effectively. However, conventional warfare might not be the only approach on the cards. Ukraine could also resort to guerrilla warfare tactics. These tactics, often used by smaller forces against larger, more powerful armies, involve stealth, sabotage, and the element of surprise. The aim here is not to engage the enemy in direct combat, but to disrupt their operations and chip away at their resources and morale over time. While these strategies are by no means foolproof, they could provide Ukraine with a fighting chance. It's important to remember, though, that each of these tactics comes with its own risks and potential drawbacks. For instance, the use of guerrilla warfare could lead to a protracted conflict with all the human suffering that entails. Similarly, seeking international support could draw other nations into the conflict, potentially escalating it to a global scale. But what could these strategies mean for Russia? As Ukraine ramps up its efforts to reclaim lost territory, Russia might find itself under increasing pressure. However, how it would respond to these strategies remains to be seen, and is a topic we'll explore in the next segment. A successful Ukrainian pushback would undoubtedly provoke a response from Russia. This statement rings true considering the way global politics and military strategies unfold. Let's consider the possibilities. If Ukraine manages to regain control over the territories it has lost to Russia, the Russian military might react in different ways. One plausible reaction could be the escalation of the conflict. Russia might resort to deploying more troops or intensifying its military operations. A desperate situation could even push Russia to use more deadly weapons in the conflict, an extreme measure that comes with grave consequences. Another possible scenario could be Russia turning the tables diplomatically. The country might initiate negotiations to resolve the conflict peacefully. This strategy could be an attempt to salvage its international reputation and avoid further sanctions from the global community. However, the darker side of this coin cannot be ignored. As the conflict intensifies, the potential for war crimes becomes increasingly alarming. Reports have already surfaced about Russian forces torturing Ukrainian prisoners of war and forcibly enlisting Ukrainian civilians to fight against their own country. These actions, considered war crimes under international law, exacerbate the human cost of the conflict. On the global stage, these actions could trigger a wave of condemnation and perhaps stricter sanctions against Russia. The international community, led by powerful entities such as the United Nations and the European Union, might step up their efforts to curtail Russia's aggression. The possibility of prosecuting war crimes at a center in The Hague could also become a reality. In this complex chess game of geopolitics, Russia's decisions could significantly alter the course of the conflict and its standing in the world. The stakes are high, and the world watches closely. But one thing is certain: Russia's actions will not go unnoticed by the global community. The world watches as this conflict unfolds. As the Ukrainian army rallies against the Russian forces, the Western world is not just a mere spectator. The international community, particularly the West, has a history of employing various measures in response to conflicts such as these. They may opt for economic sanctions, an instrument of pressure they've wielded before. These sanctions could target key sectors of the Russian economy, crippling its financial and energy industries, and potentially exerting enough pressure to change Russia's course of action. However, sanctions are not the only tool at the West's disposal. They could also provide military aid to Ukraine. This wouldn't necessarily mean boots on the ground, but rather equipment, intelligence, and training to boost Ukraine's defensive capabilities. The West could also ramp up diplomatic pressure, rallying the international community to condemn Russia's actions, further isolating it on the global stage. But the Western world is not the only one with a stake in this conflict. Let's not forget the other major powers, China and India. Traditionally, both countries have maintained cordial relations with Russia. But a drastic escalation in the conflict, especially if Russia were to deploy deadlier weapons, could compel them to reassess their stance. China, a global heavyweight, has often championed the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. Would it continue to stand by Russia if the conflict intensifies? It's a delicate balancing act. On one hand, China wouldn't want to jeopardize its relationship with Russia, a key ally and trading partner. On the other, it wouldn't want to be seen as endorsing a flagrant violation of international law. Similarly, India, a strategic partner of Russia, could find itself in a tight spot. It would have to weigh its long-standing ties with Russia against its commitment to uphold democratic values and international law. The reactions of these nations, combined with the response from the Western world, could greatly influence the trajectory of the conflict. It's a complex geopolitical puzzle, with each piece influencing and being influenced by the others. The implications of this conflict extend far beyond the borders of Ukraine and Russia. As we look to the future, uncertainty is the only certainty. We've delved into the potential strategies that Ukraine might employ to push back against Russian forces and regain control of lost territories. It's a daunting task, considering the power of the Russian army, and the fact that Russia has shown an alarming willingness to use Ukrainian civilians as pawns in their war game. On the Russian front, we've discussed the possible reactions that could occur if Ukraine does manage to gain the upper hand. The fear is that Russia might resort to even more deadly weapons than it already has. The stakes are high, and the potential for escalation is real. But this conflict doesn't exist in a vacuum. We've also considered the global implications of this ongoing struggle. The Western world has been vocal in its condemnation of Russia's actions, but whether that will translate into tangible support for Ukraine is another question. The positions of China and India, who have traditionally stood by Russia, will also be critical. If Russia escalates its tactics, will these allies continue to stand by their side? And then there's the question of a peaceful resolution. It's a hopeful thought, but one that seems increasingly distant given the current state of affairs. The road to peace is riddled with obstacles, from the stark divide between Ukraine and Russia to the international community's struggle to find a unified response to the crisis. While we can speculate, the future of the Ukrainian-Russian conflict ultimately remains to be seen. In the face of uncertainty, knowledge and understanding are our most potent tools. As we navigate the complexities of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, it becomes increasingly clear that this is more than a battle of armaments. It's a battle of wills, a test of resilience, and a reflection of the geopolitics at play in our world today. The dynamics of this conflict are intricate, with the potential to influence global politics in profound ways. From the strategies employed by Ukraine and Russia to the responses from the global stage, every twist and turn has implications that ripple out, touching lives far beyond the immediate battleground. In these tumultuous times, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But remember, staying informed is not just a responsibility, it's a form of empowerment. By engaging with the facts, we can cut through the noise and discern the truth. Understanding the stakes, the players, and the potential outcomes of this conflict allows us to contribute to the conversation in meaningful ways. And there's more than just understanding at play here. There's also empathy, compassion, and solidarity. As we learn about the challenges faced by ordinary people caught in the crossfire, let's not forget to extend our empathy to them. Let's remember that behind every headline, every statistic, there are human stories of courage and resilience. In the grand scheme of things, we may feel small, but as global citizens, our voices matter. Our collective call for peace, for justice, for respect of human rights, these are powerful forces that can help shape the course of history. So, let's stay engaged, let's stay informed, let's continue to scrutinize the actions of nations, to question the motives behind political decisions, and to champion the cause of peace and justice. As we continue to watch this conflict unfold, let's remember the power of information and the importance of global solidarity. Share your thoughts in the comment below, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.